1 year ago, I started publishing videos and articles for Brülosophy as a contributor. And to be completely honest, it's changed me as a brewer. I'm going to tell you how and why and give you a bit of a peek behind the scenes of what it's like to brew for Brülosophy. This episode is sponsored by Delta Brewing Systems. More on them in a bit.
Hey everybody, Marshall here from brewlosophy.com and the Brülosophy podcast.
At the start of 2023, we announced a new YouTube channel called The Brülosophy Show.
Starting a new thing called the Brülosophy Show.
And I'd be the one running it. The first episode dropped in February and I already had a few beers brewed and I had some videos made, but the morning that first video went live, I was freaking out. The clock was now ticking. I alone would be responsible for churning out content every week for a well-respected source of homebrewing information that I've been a fan of for years. And as it turned out, this would not be smooth sailing. So now, 1 year later, here are 5 ways Brülosophy has changed me as a brewer. I am an efficient brewer, and I don't mean brew house efficiency, like guys, I totally hit 97.4% efficiency with my mash. No, I'm a time efficient brewer, and that came about through necessity. Prior to this channel, I took on the Homebrew challenge to brew 99 beer styles in 99 weeks and put out a video about each one.
So this is it, day 1 of the Homebrew challenge, to brew 99 beer styles, 1 per week.
So I became really good at making beer fast. I'd walk into my basement brewery and 2.5 hours later walk out with a new brew in the fermenter, my gear cleaned, and all my video footage off my camera and into my computer. I obsessed over every way I could optimize that process. Brew days were not a chilled out hobby with me pottering away in my basement. They were a speedrun challenge because every week I was not only making a new beer, I was also packaging the beer from 2 weeks ago, designing a recipe for next week's brew, shooting a tasting segment for something I made last month, and spending hours and hours editing the next video to upload to YouTube. Every week for 2 years. When I moved to Brülosophy, all those same time pressures were still there, but something fundamental had changed. Whereas before, I was serving my beers to a friend or a family member.
It is very brown.
Yeah. Now each brew was being evaluated by 20 participants, including medal award-winning homebrewers and brewing pros. And unlike before, where my lone taster would have to talk about my beer to my face, these guys are filling in anonymized surveys and they don't hold back on what they really think. So change number 1 is I had to get better at brewing good beer. Let me show you what I mean. So on my phone here, I've got the survey that you would fill in as a beer evaluator, and this is for a short and shoddy recipe. So it tells me a little bit about the style, in this case Irish extra stout. I'll say yes, click next, and it's going to ask me a bunch of questions about the beer. So how hoppy is it? What kind of hop descriptors do I get? How malty is it? What malt descriptors do I get? How dry do you perceive the beer to be? Do you notice any off flavors and so on? And there's several pages of this, and ultimately they are rating my beer. This is something that took a bit of getting used to. And it's one of my short and shoddy brew days that really clued me into the importance of water. Now, yes, I know beer is mostly water, so it's obviously important. But up until this point, I'd either source my water directly from my tap, running it through an RV filter, or if I wanted to make an extra effort, I'd go to the grocery store and fill up bottles at the water dispensing station. Those approaches introduced a bunch of variables outside of my control. So was the water dispenser filter serviced recently, or was my RV filter removing the chlorine from my city water? Well, when I brewed an English IPA and brought it to ancillary fermentation at a special session with local brewing professionals, laid on just for me, I might add, I learned the importance of water the hard way.
I did think that it was a little maltier than maybe what it should have been.
It was kind of chocolatey, cocoa-y.
It just seemed to be a lot more fruitier.
Some odd stuff going on in the back end.
My beer set a Brülosophy record for most recorded off flavors. It was awful, and the most likely cause, well, I collected the water when my town was running a chloramine flush that month. So These days I collect my own water. I'm still using city water, but now I run it through a reverse osmosis system I customize with a chloramine filter. I'm starting each brew day with a blank slate, and it's probably the thing that's made the single biggest difference to the quality of my beer, and I think my tasters agree. Now, a quick word on today's sponsor, Delta Brewing Systems. Delta Brewing Systems offers some of the lowest prices on stainless steel brewing gear, like the Firm Tank, which, in addition to holding 8 gallons or 30 litres of wort, comes with a dome lid to reduce the chances of a messy blow-off. Plus, it can hold up to 2 psi of pressure for closed transfers. Delta Brewing Systems also has their own line of brew kettles, as well as one of the lowest priced all-in-one electric brewing systems out there, and their prices are shockingly low. If you're in the market for legit stainless gear that won't break the bank, do yourself a favor and head over to deltabrewingsystems.com today. You've not truly brewed until you attempt to brew 2 beers at the same time. It's stressful. When we brew a Brülosophy experiment, we're making 2 batches of the same beer where only one variable is different between the 2 brews. And that means that every other variable has to be exactly the same. So if batch 1 mashed for 62 minutes at 153 Fahrenheit, then unless the variable relates to a change in the mash, well, batch 2 had better share those exact specifications. Now, to keep things manageable, I stagger the brews a bit, maybe 20 or 30 minutes apart, but it can lead to chaos when I'm removing the grains from batch 2 while also needing to add the first hop addition to batch 1. So change number 3 is planning and documentation. I have to note my timings and my steps so I know what to do and exactly when I need to do it. Life is so much simpler when there's only one beer to brew. Change number 4 is my newly acquired access to experts. Among the Brülosophy contributors, we have 2 group chats with the guys and a Google group for planning our brew days. If I have a question about the optimal amount of gelatin to find 3 gallons of double IPA or the best temperature for a fruitic acid rest, I have a crew of experts ready to share their advice. Being part of the brew crew is amazing. They're all cool dudes to chat with, and they all have expertise in their field that I am taking full advantage of. And now that I'm Martin from Brülosophy, that has opened other doors for me where industry legends like John Palmer will talk to me. When I wanted to brew a beer in my bathtub, the author of How to Brew talked me through the whole thing step by step. It's a privilege, and I'm a far more knowledgeable brewer because of it. Okay, so that's 4 changes, and I do have 1 more. I am no longer an efficient brewer. And that's because, well, I'm brewing a bit less. We're back to weekly videos on this channel, but Brülosophy already has hundreds of brew days with data collection, so I'm not having to rely on only myself endlessly churning out new beers. You know, I recently went 6 weeks without brewing, which is basically an eternity for me, and when I came back, it wasn't quite the same. I was making a Hop Chronicles beer, one of the easiest, most repeatable brew days I do, and I found myself spending the whole morning on it. I wasn't maximizing time efficiencies to make sure I hit boil temps exactly 14 minutes after mashing out. I was taking my time, pausing to tinker with an idea I had for adding something to my fermenter, wandering off to make a coffee for 10 minutes. Schedule be damned. It was like when I first started out, where a friend would head over to my place after work with a bag of grain and a 6-pack, and we'd realize 1 hour into brew day that we hadn't even remembered to start heating the water yet. So the final way Brülosophy has changed me is I'm brewing a bit less. It's taking longer when I do brew, and honestly, as a result, I'm enjoying making beer as much as I ever have. Look, thanks to everybody that has contributed to the first year of the Brülosophy Show, be that watching the videos, commenting, or even participating in some of the experiments. And a special shout out to the White Street Brewers Guild, who host me every couple of months to try my beers and complete those surveys. If you have any ideas for how the second year of the Brülosophy Show should go, let me know in the comments, and thank you so much for watching. This first year has been pretty great.